Hello, and welcome to
Post-production.
Alright, we are going to go work with some type today. There is a very exciting PDF that walks through some of that stuff. Looks like this. And I'm going to walk through most of the demos that are in there. But do take a look at that. I think that it is perhaps a little helpful. You know, we try. So first off, I've gone ahead and opened up Photoshop, and I've grabbed my type tool. That is the letter T on the keyboard. It's this letter T in the toolbar. If you don't see it for some reason, it could be docked with these other guys, but it should be right there, horizontal type tool. I don't know why you would have any opportunity for changing it before this, but there you go. All right, so you can see the type tool looks like that. It's a little weird, sort of like a uppercase I with a line on it. I don't know. With that selected, you can see up at the top we get some contextual menu things. The first thing here is the name of the font that you're using. It's really a typeface, not a font. Everybody calls it a font. That battle is lost, right? If you get into a fight with a graphic designer at a bar, yeah, it's not a font. It's a face. Yeah, nobody calls it that. Whatever, it's font. So when you click on that, you'll get a whole big old flapping list of what the fonts are. It'll depend on your computer if you have any Adobe fonts activated, other stuff. Your menu may look a little bit different from mine. I'm going to go ahead and choose a pretty basic Palatino. That is a font that probably everybody's got. I don't know. If you don't, just choose something else. It doesn't matter right now. Next to that, you see something that says regular. If I click on that, you'll see a number of different, well, these are actually the font part, right? So that's a face, these are fonts. So regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. If you're just like used to using Microsoft Word or whatever, you think that italic is just a button you click for any font. Not really. So people who design fonts, photographers, I don't know, they actually go through and design specific italic fonts, specific bold fonts, where the letter forms and spacing and all this other shit is slightly different in each of those variations. What Microsoft Word does is just takes everything and just tilts it over a little bit if that variation is not present. That is probably fine for most of the stuff we do, but actual graphic designers totally get pissed off by that. So that's what these are. I'm going to go ahead and choose bold italic because I'm loud and emphatic. Next to that is a little thing here that says 24 PT. That is our size. Font size is measured in points, right? So 24-point font is bigger than 18, bigger than 14, bigger than 8. What is a point? I don't know, man. I'm not a graphic designer. Like, whatever. It's what fonts are measured in. What actual size this looks like, right, how big it is on your screen, is going to depend on the resolution and size of your document. So this is one of those things where if I make a 300-point font right here, whoa, that's really big. But if I do it on a document that is like 70,000 ppi and, 100 feet wide, it's going to be really small looking. So what size font you want to use kind of depends on the size of your document. What's important is that you kind of register if you're at one extreme or the other. So if you're under 12 point and your font looks pretty big, you probably are working at too low of a resolution, or you're zoomed way in or something, right? That should be a red flag. If you are working with your font set to 500 points and it's teeny tiny, likewise, that should be a red flag. Check your size, check your resolution, try to figure out what's going on, because that's weird. If you're using a, I don't know, 36-point font and it looks kind of medium, then that's not a red flag. That's a beige flag. That's probably fine. But figure out what your document size is, and then your font size is going to be relative to that, right? Font sizing is a real world thing, not necessarily a screen thing. So here we have Palatino, bold italic. I'm going to go ahead and make this, I don't know, 36 points. And let's go ahead and put some type in here. This is just a default Photoshop window. You're welcome to play along if you want. We'll do a demo in a sec. But to put some font in there, I could just click, and that would immediately put my cursor there, and I could type out some stuff. I don't really want to do that. What I want to do instead is click and drag and draw a box. Drawing that box is going to define the boundaries of where my type is going to be, and that means that I can have things like type out here, and then it will wrap to the next line, wrap to the next line. That's going to be a more intelligent way just to start out with type. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to draw a box here. Cool. And you'll see that my computer by default fills it with this placeholder text, known universally as lorem ipsum for obvious reasons. It's basically nonsense like pseudo-Latin text. You can Google it. There's a whole history about it. It's kind of interesting. I'm not going to get into it. So it fills with all the placeholder text to take up that whole box. It's also, though, automatically selected. So if I go ahead and start typing, you will first notice not that great at typing, but you'll see that it erases all of that text and drops in whatever I had. I have to say, this font looks gross. I would like to change the face that I'm just going to say font, right? I'm trying to be pretentious, but I just can't do it. I'm going to change the font. To do that, I just hit Command A, right? As long as I'm here in my text box, I can select all that type. I could also go in here, click and drag, the same as I would in Microsoft Word, and then come up here to my little menu here, and we can something else. There we go. I'm going to do Adobe Caslon Pro, because I'm classy. Look at how fucking classy that font looks. Other things, right? So after we go through size, over here there's a little thing that says sharp. This is your anti-aliasing. Now, because this is a vector, right? Your font's a vector. It's not made of little pixels, but right, it's working in a pixel environment. So it needs to determine how it's going to handle the edges of things. You can select from this menu various choices of how sort of fuzzy you want that edge to be. Right now it's on sharp. I think that's fine, right? You don't want to have none, because then you're just going to have these like black pixel edges, right? Again, right, it's a vector, but it's in a pixel environment. So if you zoom all the way in, you will see the squares because it is working in an environment full of little squares. There's no way for it to be curved there, because that curve would be cutting through half a pixel, and Photoshop doesn't know how to deal with half a pixel. So sharp, that seems fine. Crisp, also fine. I don't know, strong, smooth, right? Like, those sound like exotic dancers. Crisp and sharp sound like apple taste descriptors. I'm gonna go with crisp, like a Granny Smith. Can you tell the difference? No, I can't tell the difference. Like, whatever. Next to that, we have some more things. We have the text going over to that side. We have the text going over to the other side. I actually don't know if that's aligning with what you're seeing, which way I'm pointing. And then where we were before, which is the text centered. I'll get into more about these in a sec. And then the color. Color, right? Black right now. is great. It's important to know how to set the color in case you have this problem where you start typing text and you're like, dude, where's my text? You just have text there, it's just all white. So I'm going to go back here, set it to black again. Cool. So you'll see if I click off of that, right, that box disappears. You can use all your standard things. And then to get back into editing it, I just grab that type tool and start typing. If you are like me and you like to use keyboard shortcuts to get to different tools, keep in mind that when you are typing and you hit the keyboard, that will be interpreted as you wanting to put text in a text box if you're in a text box. So if I'm like, oh, I want to get the move tool, I'm going to hit V. Right now I have the letter V there and I do not have the move tool. So be aware of that. Right, when it's big text, when there's not a lot of it, you usually notice. If you have a whole bunch of text, you may screw up and then have to go back in later and try and figure it out. So those are our basic things up here in the contextual menu, but let's look at some more specific things. So I'm going to come up here in that contextual menu and click on this little folder. You could also go up here to Window, and that would get me the character and then also the paragraph palettes. They're right here. They're usually docked together. I'm just going to pull them off. Paragraph there. Okay. So these have more options. Some of these you'll recognize. Right up here at the top is, again, font face, size, some other options that I'll talk about in a sec. And then paragraph below has some as well. The only ones that are duplicated are these right here, which are justification, left, right, and center. So let's walk through these, right? So there we have, again, the font face, and you can choose, excuse me, depending on your font, you may have additional options here, bold, semi-bold, italic, whatever. Not all fonts have all of those options, right? You actually have to have a font designer design each one of those individual things. And so if you go and buy a font, right, it will come with some options, but not necessarily all. It may have more depending on what kind of font it is and how they designed it. But it is not something where they just like make it all fatter or make it all tilty, and that's how you get bold and italic. Somebody actually has to go sit down and figure out exactly what a good italicized version of those letter forms looks like. So right now it's here in regular size, right? One thing that's kind of cool, if I select all this stuff again, you can drag left and right on those little icons, and that will give you a real-time scaling of that type. That's kind of awesome. Underneath that, skipping this for the moment, there is something here that says metrics. I'm going to set that to optical, and you'll notice that the letters shift in their relationship just a little bit. So this is kerning. Kerning is the spacing between the characters based on their letter forms. So if I have, for example, an A and a V, right, that V goes this way, that A goes this way, right, I can actually snug them up a little bit, and they would kind of, like if you just drew a straight up and down line, might overlap a little bit, but because of the shape of the letters, that looks fine. If I have an H, right, that vertical, right, if I have that line of the A, that H can't really get into that A's space in the way that a V could. So that's kerning. that relationship between letter spacing based on the form of the letters. Generally, I want to have that be optical because that's going to I don't know. It's going to be more sort of shape-based, I think. Again, I'm not a graphic designer. Like, I think I'm right. If you're a graphic designer and you're like, Brad, you're wrong, just, holler at me. That's cool. Next to that is tracking. And I apologize that every time I go over these, I get all these goofy options there. That is a little frustrating. Next to that is tracking. So that is also, whoops, sorry, that is selected the wrong thing. That is also the spacing between the letters, but it's not really about like what their shape is. Then down here we have the height, right? You can sort of squeeze that, squish it vertically if you want to. That looks a lot better. I thought it looked a little weird. You can also do the same thing to the width. Also, not great. Get rid of that. I don't know if there is reset character. So you can go through and undo all those things. It'll also, though, undo your font choice. So gone through all of those, you can bump up here. You can bump up where they are compared to that baseline of where the normal characters would normally sit. Again, most of these things you don't want to do. There's color again. Here's some font styles, right? There's like fake bold, fake italic. Don't use those. If you have a real option for bold and italic, use that. It will look so much better. There's a reason people design these things professionally. Small caps, right? That's kind of fun. You can set something to be a, what the hell do they even call it? Up where an exponent goes. Maybe there's, will this tell me what it is? Superscript. Superscript, subscript, right? And that's going to affect everything that you've just selected. So you probably don't want to do it to your entire thing, but you might want to say, it's a camera nerd. I don't know. Again, these are fairly specialized things. Maybe you will find a use for them out there. Maybe you will not. Underline, that is normal stuff. Undo that there. So underline, predictable, and then strike through, right? These are all fairly unusual things. There's some stuff down here with ligatures. Don't worry about it, right? You're welcome to play around with any of these things, but not super important. The other thing that we didn't touch on is up here. Okay, so here we have some dumb text. Don't analyze my subconscious, please. If I go up here and select all of that, this one right here is going to affect the amount of space between each of those lines. So that is called leading, right? If you see it written out, you might think it says leading. It doesn't say leading, it says leading. name is coming from the bars of lead that would be put between those lines of type back in the olden days when people had printing presses or whatever. Auto is usually totally fine. You can also drag this here. The thing to pay attention to, though, is in instances where you have an ascender, right, letter that goes up, and a descender, letter that goes down, in the same spot, they're going to run into each other if you don't have a reasonable amount of space, right? Now, for the graphic designers out there, okay, that means there's a lot of space here. That's true. But, some letters are taller than other letters, and so they need different amounts of space. Again, Photoshop is not a great program to use if your goal is laying out a lot of text. It just isn't, right? This is not the place to do it. For small amounts of text, it's totally fine. If you need to make a business card, okay, right? You know how to use Photoshop? Boom, go for it. But if you are laying out text for a book, right, don't do it here. Right? You can't even get multiple pages. It doesn't make any sense. Use InDesign. If you are trying to make a poster and a business card and a letterhead and a whatever, right, like use Illustrator, right? That's what these things are made for. Photoshop, as the name implies, photos. But there they are. It's all very exciting. Moving down to the paragraph thing, we have a couple of options here. We have justification, we have left, right, and center. So those are pretty great. Or I guess that's a line. Yeah, sorry, left align, center align, right align, whatever. Justification, here we go. I don't know. I think this is also that. So you have an idea of what these things do, right? All the text slides over and aligns on this side. All the text slides over and aligns on the other side. All the text aligns right down the center. Here, it spreads the text out so that it hits both sides. Why would you do this? Well, if you have a whole bunch of text, like paragraphs of text, it's going to look a lot better if it doesn't have one raggedy ass side, right? If I can hit both sides, that's great. Problems with that, right? Okay, well that looks stupid if I just have this big old gap in there. So most of the time you're going to leave that bottom bit, right, either aligned left or right, and then justify the rest of it. It also works a lot better if you have a whole lot of text. If you just have like 2 words, it's going to look really stupid no matter what you do. So for big words, few words, align it, don't justify it. If you have a whole lot of words, then justifying it will make it look a lot better, and it will take up more of that space that you're putting it in. It will like have better graphic impact. So that is our brief introduction to how this text works, and now I'm going to jump on to the demo, first one,